Hello, everyone. Welcome to CXO Spice. CXO Spice is a platform for thought leaders to share their point of view on innovation and explain how to make it happen in real world. Today's topic is AI networks and higher ed. Our special guest today is Mike Newcomb, head of higher ed and GEM, that's government, education, and medical at Juniper Networks. Hello, Mike. Welcome to CXO Spice.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Tell us more about yourself and your role at Juniper Networks.
Yeah, I get the privilege of leading the higher education vertical for Juniper Networks, and it's a nice position because it's more from a consulting standpoint. They took advantage. They actually recruited me because not only was I deep into networking in my career. I mean, I go back to Digital Equipment Corporation and Burroughs, and I've been in networking forever. But at the same time, I've also managed to be an adjunct professor for over 40 years. So one of the neat things about being in this role is that I can really talk to thought leaders that really want to understand from both sides of the chair, if you will, right? So not only as a user that has to use its own equipment, but also on the other side. So that's my background. I've had a lot of good experience throughout my career working as a VP at AT&T, where I ran their government education medical program, at Nortel and places like that. So yeah, I'm glad to be here on the show, and we're ready to talk about anything you'd like to speak about, Helen.
Wow, so that's wonderful to have you, Mike. So I really enjoyed the recent Juniper Education Summit. What's your key takeaways from the summit?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I saw, and I was glad that we talked about during the summit, was that there has been radical change. Not just radical change from the standpoint of, oh gosh, something's got a new feature, but actually a true paradigm shift in networking has taken place. And this started in 2018, if you will. But it has really changed the way people need to look at networking. It's an exciting time here at Juniper because we are unique in what we offer in terms of how we do what we're doing. As much as you'd like to see how other folks are saying, well, I've got this or I've got AI or whatever, there's a big difference. And I can feel it, and not only just in my 40 years of networking, seeing a difference in how networks were architected versus how where they need to go. And for me, that's the biggest takeaway, is that there's been such radical change, a paradigm shift in networking that has taken place that makes a significant difference in how people need to look at networking.
Yeah, that's really well said, Mike. So it's really interesting how the idea of AI-driven campus seems to be a hot topic among universities. I'm curious, what exactly is the role that AI networks play on today's college and university campuses? And speaking of that, have you come across any insights from customers about how Juniper is making a difference in shaping educational experiences through AI?
Sure. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about the use cases that we've had where people just love what we've done with AI. Our implementation really started 2018 and before. So think about this. When you're talking about AI, there's a lot of people out there today that say they've got AI and they're going to have it next week. And there's a big difference between having something that has had machine learning crunching petabytes of data since 2018 to create this new paradigm shift. It really started around the fact that when the architecture was being conceived of how we're going to blow things up and how we're going to make things more usable and reduce the operational costs using AI, it really does come down to the fact that you don't focus on equipment. I think that's kind of an interesting way of putting it, right? We don't try to focus on this switch or this access point or whatever. It's really about, how is, Helen, your experience on the network? I don't care what goes behind it. I care that Helen had a good experience. So whether we're on this call here, on a Zoom call, and let's say that something starts to happen, and there is, and again, this comes from a teaching perspective in my case, where you're having a Zoom call with your students, and then something goes on that you go, what's going on? My students can't hear me. I don't understand it. Perhaps I was teaching from home today because I'm a hybrid instructor or professor. And you say, how? What's the problem? And you've got the IT departments that usually when any little problem comes up, they have to go in and start looking at equipment. Oh, it's this. Is the light on here? Can I drag the poor person? Can I try to replicate it? There's just all these things that come up with it. And that's because that was a way that networks were always taken care of, right? You have equipment, you fix it, as opposed to say, you know what? I had a Zoom experience that was bad. My students didn't enjoy it. What was the problem? And to be able to quickly understand that AI, knowing what's going on in your network, because again, of all the work that's been done in the last, 4, 5, 8 years, that all that work that has been done to say, I can recognize that the problem that I had when I was teaching my class was that during the time I was sitting there trying to deliver my instructional capabilities to my students, it turned out that at the same time I had one of my kids running Netflix and Amazon Prime selling things or downloading PlayStation things. And it was all happening at the same time, which was causing my DNS server, for example, to be overloaded. And so there was no way I was going to have that bandwidth. And so to be able to know that immediately versus, I don't know what's wrong with it. What were you doing at the time? Asking them a million questions, hoping they can figure it out, or saying, hey, here's some things you might want to look at. To be able to know with a great deal of capability and certainty that the problem happened because my DNS server was overloaded, and that AI would recognize that was an issue or a problem. Again, it's about experience. It could be something as simple as going from one building to another. I'm on campus and I'm going from one building to another, and suddenly I get the blue circle of death. And usually, what does a student or a faculty member say? Oh, the Wi-Fi stinks here. It's no good. And and again, that's an open-ended question that usually relates to a long set of trouble ticketing efforts that are used to kind of take and to try to diagnose the issue, as opposed to being able to quickly recognize before they even know that, oh, here's the problem. You got your problem going from building A to building B because maybe there was a missing VLAN on the switch, and the AI engine said, hey, did you know that Helen had a problem going here? She had a bad experience that was related because of a missing VLAN. Here it is. Here, you want me to fix it with a button. Or it's a bad cable that's on a switch. I mean, these are all things. Again, you're sitting from a help desk standpoint. You already know before anybody else does that there's an issue going on. So, from when you think about the most important things that go on a campus, it is about reliability and the student experience, but it's also faculty. And to be able to utilize AI to be able to help you quickly diagnose problems, because operational AI requires a lot of things to make it work. We took that by taking this piece of paper and tearing up the old architecture of these old centralized controller-based architectures that could just let you do Wi-Fi and that's it. And if you want management, you had to go build some other parallel architecture. And if you wanted another thing of doing location services to do something neat and special, you had to buy yet a third thing. All of that has gone away because of our movement, not only just embracing AI, but things that make AI be good is about having this microservices cloud and things like this. So that's, and I can talk a little bit more about that if you like, but it is about changing that architecture, this staid, stoic, very hierarchical, if it goes down, your campus is down architecture, and changing it and helping universities move to this cloud-based architecture, which has a tremendous number of benefits to being able to now implement AI within a campus.
Well, that's amazing, Mike. I can relate to that, right? So many times my internet is down or network's down, not knowing what really happened. It was frustrating in the middle of a meeting or in the middle of a speech, right? I also heard about the UTSA and then the Fairfax story at the summit already. So thank you for reiterate that. And speaking of that, I really like the fact that you focus on end user experience, because that's refreshing. But then what are some of the challenges and pain points that network operators in the education sector are sharing today? And on a related note, I'd love to hear more about how Juniper is stepping in to streamline and modernize these operations for them.
Sure. Yeah. So when you look at how we look at life now, again, moving away from all this hardware and having to have highly certified people with CCI blank, 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 and these expensive resources, which tend to churn a lot in higher education, that you try to say in this new architecture, what can we do that's going to be different, that's more simplified? So think about this. I mentioned before this architecture that we have, where the old architecture that was built in the days of the BlackBerry.
Mm-hmm.
That's what still is being purported by a lot of our, unfortunately, by a lot of our competitors. That it sells a lot of equipment. It makes a lot of people have to get expensive certifications. And in fact, one of the certifications you need is that they'll break one little thing inside your network, just one little thing. And to get certified, you got to go find the needle in a haystack. My feeling is, why would you have a network that could have a needle in the haystack that breaks you down in the first place? And so by taking, again, the experience approach, we did change this. And so to do what we needed to do, we created this microservices cloud. And again, I'll talk a little bit about how the UT systems have done things as well, and a couple of other examples. But think about this. If you had this big cloud, that's the first step toward real AI to me. Mm-hmm. And again, we're not talking about a cloud like I want to put a controller in the cloud, because some people do that. This is about microservices. So this cloud should be able to provide a framework and an infrastructure back to people that are at individual campuses, to be able to say, hey, I have access to everything I need, regardless of where I am on the campus. And that if something went wrong, the worst case scenario, last year, we had several campuses that were completely shut down by one of our competitors because they upgraded their controller architecture. It shut them down. And when it shut them down, it shut down all access to the internet from the Wi-Fi. So any services were gone too. As opposed to, from a resiliency standpoint, having this wonderful microservices cloud where every single person is an independent entity into the cloud. So number one, there's nothing that is going to go wrong. It's infinitely scalable because the cloud can accommodate as small and as large as you want. And so what goes up into this microservices cloud? Why is that the basis of what we're talking about? It's this, that when an individual, and I want to focus on you as an individual, as your personal experience, if I'm sending information up to that cloud on a regular basis about your experience while you're on the network, that is a game changer, because all that is already up there. Its data is being crunched in machine learning to say, hey, this is what happened, or something bad was going on. Machine learning is learning and getting smarter and smarter every day. But by the fact that I could take, and I'll throw a number out here, I don't like to get too detailed, but think about it. Every device you have on the network, your cell phone here, right? Mm-hmm. This cell phone being able to it's sending 150 pre and post data points every minute of every day of just my personal experience on the network up into the network to say, here's what it is. Oh, I had a problem because I couldn't authenticate because, I couldn't get on. I know about that before you do. I know about it because it's being picked up. So all of this information is flowing up about problems that have been created, things that might be happening, that is then being crunched with machine learning. So keep in mind, this cloud gives you the experience of every single device on campus. But let me take it another step further. If you had in this cloud not only the experiences of UT Arlington, or UT San Antonio, or Dartmouth College, or Oxford, or Reading, and Bristol, and our other huge customers like Walmart, Fortune 1, like UPS, like CVS, all of their experiences are also going into the cloud to be able to do this. So that's step number two. You have to have a cloud that can accommodate a wide range of customers. Everybody should be in the same cloud. All their experiences are going there because, again, what's the number one thing that machine learning needs? Data, petabytes of data. And so we've been crunching this petabytes of data, which leads me to third point about good AI, is that we've been crunching this petabytes of data for over 8 years. So So when somebody says, I'll have AI next month, but they don't have a microservices cloud, they don't have shared customer experiences, what are they doing? They're writing AI algorithms to try to fix a problem, as opposed to saying, I've got everything I need in the cloud at any given time. It's all there. And then the last thing is to pop a conversational interface on the front of it. And we have one called Marvis, where you grind this down to a very simple thing, Helen. You say, who's having a bad day on my network? And it gives you a tabletop version and a response to say, here are the people that are having issues right now on your network, and here are the problems, and here's how you can fix it. In some cases, automated one where you push a button and it's fixed. So that increases that ability to increase satisfaction, lower costs, just because of the fact that you just don't have trouble tickets. In fact, let me throw you a number out. Dartmouth College is on record of saying that they've dropped their trouble tickets by over 95%. And that's all because of the fact that they've embraced AI, they embraced this cloud, they embraced it from a switching perspective and everything. And Dartmouth was able to utilize this cloud architecture to reduce it to the point where they actually use students to help do their front-end help desk now. That was always unheard of, right? They just sit and run the AI engine and say, hey, who's having a bad day? And it gets fixed. And so not only do you have a huge reduction in trouble tickets, but you also have an increase in satisfaction, and the load of the churn that goes on in these IT organizations, needing expensive people, they can spend the expensive people doing the proactive things that they want to do. The one last thing I will say about this, and I want to use Dartmouth College again, is when you have this cloud and the way of doing things, it changes the nature of how you even implement and go to market as far as getting up and running. So Helen, I'll give you an example. Let's just say that you're at Dartmouth College right now. They have like 7,000 students. There's probably, thousands of people going to the dorms and whatever. How long do you think it would take to install 2,000 access points in just a normal world, right?
In a normal world, it would take months.
Months and longer even, right? Because it's just so much. What if I told you that because of the way this cloud is working, they were able to do 2,000 access points in 48 hours?
Wow.
All they did was they used students who did 1,400 of them the very first day. They took their access point, unclicked the other guy, clicked ours in, took a picture of the QR code, plugged in the Ethernet cable, and within a minute it was up and running. Every single one flawlessly. They could have done all 2,000 in 24 hours, but the students actually wanted to have just a little bit of another free day of lunch. So they gave them an extra day to finish off the last 400. But that gives you an example of what happens here, just not only in the Wi-Fi side, but on the switching side. So it's a dramatic difference in implementation. It's a dramatic difference in what we end up doing when it comes to diagnosing trouble. And AI plays that big part of it, but it's also hand in glove with having the right architecture behind everything you do.
Well, that's remarkable, Mike. That's truly a game changer, right? Just make sure I got it. The My4 Service Cloud, right? You have a shared customer experience. Then you have 8 years of data, right, to enrich that experience. On top of that, you have a conversational interface that allows people to communicate with each other. That's amazing. I wish I could go back to college again and relive that experience. Tell us a little bit more. Obviously, could you explain why it's so crucial for you to prioritize user experience in higher ed, and how is AI coming into play, achieving this enhanced user experience?
Sure. So, user experience, it comes in a couple different stripes, if you will. There's the I'm on your network stripe of being able to talk about, I don't like the fact that I don't have Wi-Fi access in the common room, or I don't have access here, or where I'm going from building. So that's just network experience on there. But there's a whole other set of things of being able to develop applications that can be used to address things. And these are things that we do because we actually take all this wonderful data that's up there, and we provide the ability on most of our access points to have what are called location capable events. And these location events are provided by the fact that in our access points, there is a Bluetooth array. And the reason I make this, and I say the word array, because a lot of people say, well, I got Bluetooth. But when I say array, there's 16 antennas that go in here. And what it gives me, Helen, is the ability to tell where, if they decide to do this on campus, that there's always privacy and what is opt into, but to be able to know where any device is on the network, which is your user, your phone, and know it within 1 to 3 meters, even if it's on a multi-level thing, right? So we've got universities like the one in Texas, University of Texas. Arlington is one of the first to do it, by the way, but they were using it for being able to do blue dot navigation for new students and trying to develop a something that leverages our free API. We give it to anybody so that they can create something to create blue dot navigation. So when a student comes on campus for the first time and they're uncomfortable about where they can go, they're able to use this to say, oh, I can find this. I'm looking to go to the lunchroom. Where is the cafeteria? Or perhaps think about this art of the possible, to be able to say, hey, where's my instructor? I really need to find him and talk to him. Where is he? And to be able to do that and navigate just as you would, not using GPS, because GPS is very generic and top level, versus a Bluetooth that allows you to get 1 to 3 meters and go through. But you also have a lot of other applications that go to student safety. We had one great university on the East Coast who their CIO will tell you that it was like a dream come true to watch Juniper roll out. It was during the COVID era. What was the main thing we did in COVID? We shut down campuses. We were constantly worried about who was around. We had to hire 1 million contact tracers, right? And these people would ask you, okay, you've had COVID. Who are you around? You don't remember who you were around. I don't. Over 6 or 8 months or 9 months or 3 months, or in the case of COVID, it was just 30 days. You don't have any idea of where you may have been. Well, one of the things that we're able to do for them was because of the Bluetooth contact tracing, and they were one of the very first universities to implement using Bluetooth as a way to try to mitigate COVID. They were able to use from that standpoint to say, you know what? I know where Mike Newcomb was on this campus over the last 30 days. I can see he spent most of his time right here in classroom, blah, 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 or in this lab. And so we don't have to close the whole school. We can say, you know, he spent most of his time here. Let's clean that first. Let's make that super clean. But the best part is that on campus, to be able to say, you know, I was with Helen, I was near her for at least 5 minutes within 1 to 3 meters. We were close in proximity. I should let Helen know that if she has symptoms that could be COVID related and to get checked, right? So there was a whole gamut of things that were then funded through the CARES Act and things like this to be able to take advantage using what we had as a way to do those kind of things. So these are all kind of things that are the art of the possible. We have people that are, again, this is not necessarily AI related. It's more about the extra things that we deliver. But for example, we have situations where we have a alliance partner who their purpose in life is student retention. Student retention is about the happiness of the student, right? Number one. Student retention is keeping them in. If they go in as a freshman, what do you want them to do? If you're a university, you want them to graduate, right? You want them to go all the way through, maybe go through doctorate. But usually in the first 6 months of a new student, you'll see that there's a fairly hefty dropout rate. Some people don't accommodate or don't acclimate to the university settings. And so one of the things they are able to do in this company, they'll say, hey, I know where your students are based on their patterns. Some students are not going out of their room. They're going maybe to lunch and then back to their room, but they don't even go to classes maybe. And so you can create a risk score so that the university can say, hey, let me have a conversation. Let me help you. Are you struggling? Are you not getting on with student life? Is there something wrong with the way you have the dorm set up? And so there's just things like that can be addressed, which then leads in their particular case, they say they can increase student retention by 30%. The other topic I will say that comes to, again, about experience, when I send students and when I sent my kids to college, one thing as a parent that's on your mind is, are they safe?
Yeah.
right? You want your students to be safe. There's a lot of crazy things that go on. And so to be able to have the ability to know that my students are, if I'm going to, if, you know, a co-ed, for example, says, I'm going to go do my laundry at 9 o'clock at night, and they want to call campus security, hey, I'm going to do this. Campus security can watch them physically go across the campus, go into the laundry room, and do what they're doing as far as, you know, their location, and say, would you please keep track of me in case something that might be sketchy in the middle of the night? Or if they call and say, you know, I don't feel safe. There's somebody here that's making me feel unsafe. So campus security is going to get dispatched. What's the first thing that the person is going to do that is feeling unsafe? They're hopefully going to go take cover or go find some place. And so when a campus security person comes to help check it out, you can watch them go out of the building and go to where they need to be, and to be able to go look and say, okay, they're thinking, but where did my person go? Well, they're over here, they're in this room, they've got.
So that seems to be a use case can be applied to many other situations, right? Like, for example, before I visit New York or San Francisco, I can give them a call. Can you monitor, making sure I'm safe being in the city?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's very expansive, and it all has to do with the fact that you have to have the data in the cloud. Yeah. So you know, otherwise it's not really relevant data. You can have data, but
is that part of the Juniper's location services, or is there
yes, yeah. So all of the things we do now, the applications that are built around us are not Juniper created. They're done by our partners that want to do it, and universities create their own applications all the time. We give it to them for free. It's an application programmer interface that we say, here it is. All the data is there. You want to build something for yourself, like UT Arlington is building on their own, because they have their own programmers that they want, and they use students to be able to do it. They do all those things well. But you know, again, the things that you can offer when you have this kind of control are things like libraries, where if you think libraries are entities in a college at campus that, believe it or not, have to get funded every year and based on use. So to be able to know, here's who comes to the library, here's where they dwell, here's the people that went to the anthropology section, you know, here's the most used areas. You have things like this, or resources on campus. Oh, where's my, where's my laptop for this particular thing? You know, you can secure those things. Or again, like I mentioned before, as an instructor, I would just like to know who came into my classroom, how long they dwelled. You know what I hated the worst was wasting 15 minutes of the first part of my class taking roll call and then having to think about if somebody left early.
Yeah.
But for me to be able to say, this person has come in, they dwelled, how long they dwelled. And you know what? To be able to feed that on the back end, to go up into the cloud, to be able to say, now it's in Blackboard or Canvas, that makes me as an instructor much happier to know that there's things like that can be developed. But this is all about having an infrastructure and architecture that can accommodate all this. The old architectures do not accommodate this stuff. They're all tag-ons and bolt-ons that when one thing if you upgrade one thing, it breaks two other things. This is a unified way of looking at the network.
Well, that's important. Talk a lot about campus and college. What about K-12 primary schools? How do they fit into that equation? What different needs do they bring to the table?
You know, believe it or not, they're very similar when you look at this. But the biggest point about K-12 is if you really think about it, the people that have to support the network, there's even less resources. I've been to high schools where the guy that ran the network was the math teacher, or science teacher. They don't have the ability, or you know, and now bigger districts, certainly they might have somebody that does things the way they want it, but ultimately to be able to use AI operations and to take that load off of them so that they know that their K-12 experience of a student, you know, kindergartner all the way up to high school, that it's good, is going to be dependent on the fact that you've got to have the right people running the network. Well, if you can take that load off of them and make AI operations and let the majority of that hard work be done by the people that are in the cloud with our AI operations things, it's going to make it a big difference. It's going to make it easier. Let the people in K-12 focus on getting our kids doing better at reading, writing, and arithmetic versus some other things. keeping in mind also that on the network in the K through 12 is is becoming more and more needed, that the quality of that network, because what are you seeing? Everybody's got a Chromebook. The number of devices that are coming in, be able to identify it. I had one use case, not AI specific, but it was about the security thing I talked about, that when a visitor comes on campus, they want to know where that person's going and know do they only go to the places they were supposed to go, or are they on campus, going around where they wouldn't want to go. They wanted to see things like, I want to be able to know that if this person went through this one door, that the door would lock behind it and the front door would lock, so they're trapped between the two doors, because they want to make sure that whatever this person's doing, if they're not supposed to be where they are, they can look at it. And so that's an integration with Stanley door lock systems, for example, that somebody has developed to say, if I go between these two doors, it's going to create what is called a dead man door situation.
That's super important, right?
Yes.
Our kids' safety is number one priority for all, not only the parents, but educators as well. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and just being able to know, if you wish, every student, would have their you've seen them, they all have lanyards, and it just happens to be, let's make this lanyard be a Bluetooth capable thing on their badge, that says they're the student there. And if something was to happen where the doors are closed and locked, you can, from the network's view, at least see where all your lanyards are in the network. You say, oh, here's where this has this many rooms in there. You know who the students are. So if somebody's asking, is my son or daughter there, you would know where they are. You can use it to locate where they are at any given time, because obviously students, even during non-critical situations, you want to know that your child went to class and that they're potentially doing something. So again, I call this the art of the possible. Some people have lesser just because of privacy and security, which is totally fine. Every school needs to make its own decision on how they handle that and where they draw the line for security versus privacy, and they do it together in a cohesive fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mike, for those who are interested, where can they find the on-demand content for the Education Summit?
Yes, so you can get this. It's on our main webpage over. If you go to the juniper.net site, you'll see in the higher education part, there's a link for that.
What innovation are you most excited about?
This is a fun question to answer. I've had this asked a couple of times. Number one, so we made this journey with Wi-Fi and then wireless, right? That's where we were, wired and wireless. And that's where the journey has started. But now, once you grasp the function of a microservices cloud-based architecture, it changes a lot of things, especially in the security world too. So imagine something as simple as what I call network access control. Where can I get on the network? The way that higher ed and K through 12 have always architected, they've had to have these esoteric things that take millions of devices, thousands of devices, maybe not millions, but thousands of devices, where I got to go in and individually program this one, say, okay, this guy can go here and this guy can go here. Here's where I can get in from an access. But consider this now, that whole access piece is up in the cloud. No more equipment down here. You're authenticated as you go through the cloud. And it's simplified enough that Marvis, our AI engine, is able to interact with it, to have the machine learning things that are going to interact with it. Those are the things that are coming. But again, the first step here it's the architectural change of moving away from tons of equipment that have a lot of complexity to something that's in the cloud that gives you that control very quickly and very easily in a tabletop manner, to be able to take care of thousands of people that are coming on campus and do it very quickly. So I'm seeing that come. You'll see other things that are coming from just how we deal with routing, which is very complex as well as even our physical, or the firewall type security things. We believe security is throughout everything, right? But this network access control piece is a huge, huge differentiator versus the competitor. And just like we've seen our higher education customers go like this, we're going to see them also adopting this new way of doing network access control, because once they taste how smooth and easy and quick it is, and how protected and zero trust it is, they will adopt it. I give you, all we ask is this, Helen, try it.
Mhm.
Test it out. If you'll just take a proof of concept of what we do, and we have programs for higher education to allow us to let you try everything I just talked about with all the subscriptions, because you know, again, cost is always something. We'll give you everything for a year to try out what we're talking about.
Mhm.
When people that have done that will almost always decide this is the way to go, because seeing is believing. And I'll leave this for you as my last comment. Once you've seen this, you can't unsee it. You just can't. It's that exciting.
I'm a firm believer in that too, Mike. Seeing is believing. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us on AI networks and how it has transformed higher ed experiences today, Mike. Here are my key takeaways from our conversations. Number one, strong networks in the digital age is education's backbone. In today's fast-paced digital transformation, secure, simple, and updated educational spaces are more crucial than ever. Innovations like AI, IoT, and smart technologies are elevating collaborations, campus safety, and privacy. But remember, all these advancements rely on robust networks to truly flourish. Number two, empowering education through AI networks. We're talking about My4 services to enrich shared customer experience and then students' experience. We're talking about seamlessly connecting students with educators, whether they're on campus or learning from afar, or they want to reach from point A to point B. AI can really ensures that dependable Wi-Fi and top-notch network performance, fostering that dynamic lectures, interactive discussions, and teamwork. Number three is efficiency empowered by AI networks. Think of AI-driven network as a proactive problem solvers, right? They detect and fix issues before anyone even notices. This not only saves valuable time and resources, but also fuels hybrid learning models. The efficient approach reduces cost while making education adaptable to various formats. And what I learned from you, so let's applaud Juniper Networks for their innovative strides in secure, simple, AI-driven networks, addressing the challenges of the cloud era in higher education. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Stay hungry, stay bold, and stay grateful.